Okay, well, welcome everyone. I think we'll probably have a few more people joining us, but we might as well get started. I'm Priscilla Bailey with the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and we're very glad to have you all here. This is a really important topic, something that New York across the country has been grappling with. So I hope we have a very productive discussion that also empowers you to take action to help people who are food insecure in our city. So I would like to welcome our panelists from our Cathedral Community Cares program. We've got Thomas Perry, Vanessa Greco, Henry, Robert Finn, and Thomas manages the program. Vanessa oversees the clothing closet. Robert is our food manager, and he works with Henry on the pantry. So we're very glad to be joined by them. From Episcopal Charities, I'd like to welcome Patrick Bergquist and Tobi Mojeed-Balogun. Patrick is the Chief Program Officer, and Tobi is the Associate Director of Programs. And Episcopal Charities, for those of you who don't know, funds important programs on a range of issues throughout the Diocese of New York. So they really have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in food pantries run by churches throughout the diocese. And then we're very excited by two colleagues from the Food Bank in their Government Affairs program, Isabella Divilova, who's the Community Mobilization Manager, and Nicole Hunt, who is the Associate Director of Public Policy. And last but not least, we are very excited to introduce our new Associate of Community Engagement, Mother Eva Suarez, who is now starting your second week at the Cathedral? Second week. So Eva comes to us from Trinity and St. James, where she worked at ministry and outreach. And she has a master's in divinity from Union, an MSW from Hunter School of Social Work. And so Eva's really going to be working on strengthening the cathedral's role in our West Harlem neighborhood and what we're doing to really engage with the people we serve. So just a little bit of housekeeping. You're all muted, but at the end, when we have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and either raise your hand, put a question in the chat, or just simply speak out, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. And I will now turn it over to Eva.
All right, well, let me thank you all for coming, those who are attendees, and let me thank our panelists for joining us. You guys have such varied and different expertise, so I'm grateful that you've taken the time. Starting with CCC, our first question, which will be the same for all the organizations, but let's start with CCC. If you could tell us what you're seeing in the work that you do. Has the population that you serve changed? Have needs changed? Are there any big changes that you, as an organization, have had to make to how you operate?
Sure.
Are we unmuted?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I'm the outreach coordinator and keeper of the closet for Cathedral Community Cares. What we've noticed probably since March of 2022, 22, we've had at least a 76% uptick in clothing and food. So that has to do with the migrant situation. If they come for food, they always find out about the clothing, and then they'll end up coming for clothing as well, or vice versa. So that has probably been the biggest. But one other thing, since the beginning of COVID, we've noticed a lot of community members who would help us normally once a week, twice a week, drop off this, drop off that, have been seen on the food line. So if one thing I've noticed is that nobody's safe. We're all a paycheck away. So we've really been trying to stretch, and I've been trying to outreach as much as possible to get in the needs and the wants of what they're really literally almost demanding. It's not even a need, it's a demand almost now.
And so also piggyback off what Vanessa is saying. So in the beginning of COVID, when our soup kitchen was downstairs, we had a lot of single individuals, single males. COVID started something like a trend that we noticed where it's more families, and that's continuing today. Now we're getting families and we're getting military. It's kind of weird.
It's like a 3-tier
Yep.
family. It's the mother, the father, the daughter, the son, and the children. So we call that 3 tiers.
Wow, so a real growth in need. And I mean, even seeing a movement from folks volunteering to needing to receive aid from the program. I wonder if Episcopal Charities, if you can speak to what you're seeing in the work that you do, maybe it's similar to our CCC folks, maybe it's different.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having us. We're really, really grateful to be here. A couple of observations that we have, and again, our purview is we're here in the city. We support about 100 different programs across the Episcopal Diocese of New York. So we get a chance to see a lot of different things. What we're seeing is some of the exact same things that the cathedral are seeing. Again, March of last year, if you remember back to January of last year, there was this sense of like, okay, we're kind of coming off this thing. We've got it figured out. And then we started seeing this uptick, March, April, May. And so those numbers of 76% increase year over year, seeing that all over the place. The other thing we're seeing is that if you know the history of food pantries, is that they were meant to be kind of emergency. They were meant to be kind of a stopgap. Someone lost their job and it's going to take them a month or two to kind of get back on their feet. Well, that's what the system was designed to do. But now it has become a staple where entire families, they are budgeting being able to go to a food pantry so that they can stay in their apartment or their homes. So we have this real significant economic shift that we're seeing across the programs that we support. And the other issue we're running into a lot is people who've never been to a food access program have likely never had to access other services as well. And so finding ways of bringing wraparound services around them to help them, like the systems for support are there and they're extremely hard to access. They're extremely hard to manage. And so if you've never had any experience with that, trying to get some help around there. Tobi, are there any other things that you've noticed when you've been out on in the field?
Yeah, and these are similar things, especially when we think about kind of having access to these state services, social services, so things like SNAP, which soon the federal subsidies, the federal grants towards that program are going to go away as the pandemic emergency status is going away. So seeing how the kind of the trouble with navigating that, as opposed to someone who's had that before, as opposed to now, and then just the inflationary just pressures on everybody, from families who have to look to food pantries and soup kitchens to supplement, to not only that, but also to the programs themselves who are struggling to kind of source the food that they need in order to help support their community. So I think it's a mix. So everything that we're seeing CCC, we're seeing it in different ways, but the same kind of phenomenon throughout the diocese.
So there's really this terrible build and need that sounds like it's culminating across the diocese. The Food Bank of New York, I think you're the largest food provider in the 5 boroughs. Have you seen the same increase in need and also the need for wraparound services?
I mean, just echoing really everything that folks are saying, I think we can confirm that that's citywide, that the need is sustained, since the initial kind of uptick is not a word that really describes what happened, but since the initial sort of surge in the pandemic, then that we haven't really seen the big reduction in that need. At the same time, more recently, the pandemic programs are expiring and sunsetting. And then, as Toby said, the added pressure of inflation and just even having the same money that we have, not going as far, that purchasing power not going as far. So we see it at the food bank level, the community-based organizations see it at the distribution levels, and then families see it in their households, right? So we're that's just being compounded across everything. Just to echo what people are saying, the population of immigrants tends to be younger, more families. And at Food Bank, we like to talk a lot about like beyond food and really make an effort to think beyond food assistance. As someone said, we try not to use the words emergency food anymore because it's gone beyond being an emergency program. Really, this is, it's food assistance. It's sustaining families in many cases. It's not, sort of trying to move away from that way of thinking, to more accurately represent the services that we provide. The feedback we get from the network is that people come, they need everything. They need legal services, right? They need translation services. They need food. They need housing. They need clothes. So just it's a lot of people and it's a lot of need, and it's happening at a time that we are trying to do more with less, sort of across the board.
Wow. It's just a little humbling hearing all of the work that you guys are doing and the ways that you've had to continually pivot since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. I have a question for Episcopal Charities, and some of this you've spoken to a little bit about the expanded need across the diocese. But so the diocese stretches from Staten Island to Ulster County. So I'm wondering if you can talk to how differently some of these needs, food insecurity, income inequality, manifest across the diocese. Are there different kinds of needs that show up in some places and not others?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really significant differences. And that has been one of the learning processes about coming to Episcopal Charities, is understanding that food access and lack of access to healthy food looks different in the Bronx than it does in Putnam County or in Westchester County. Let me speak to one piece that we're seeing right now as it pertains to immigration. We know that there's been a real huge surge because of these awful policies of busing people into the city. And what we're seeing is our programs in the city saw this massive escalation, really significantly overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And now what we're seeing is that people are filtering up into the Hudson Valley more and more. More and more immigrant families are making their way up through the valley, trying to find friends, trying to find other resources, trying to find safety, to be honest with you, as we're talking to our community members. So a lot of our programs that we support in the Valley weren't seeing major surges in immigration until the last couple of months. And so that's been an interesting trend to track. The other thing that we're noticing, especially in the Valley, is something very different from people who come to the Cathedral. There's public transportation in the city. Jump on a bus, jump on a train, walk. There's ways of getting there. In the Hudson Valley, in order to get to a food access program, you most likely need a car or someone with a car. And so there's all kinds of transportation issues that we're running into with programs up there. Cars are expensive, especially when you don't have any money to maintain them. And so that has significant impact on people's ability to access fresh food. So I would mention the immigration piece that's going on right now. And one of the differences as access and being able to get to the locations.
So my next question is for the food bank, where you guys focus on the 5 boroughs. So it's almost the opposite issue, where you have these different kinds of connections and different programs available. And your research really helps inform government and community efforts against food insecurity in the city. Are there any new policies to combat these issues that the public should be aware of?
So we'll actually have our State of the Network, our sort of big annual report coming out in the next, I want to say, month or so. I'm not sure the exact timeline on that, but that will, I think, reflect a lot of what we're talking about here. As far as policies, there are a few things at mostly at the state level that are in very early stages. Some talk about like a SNAP-like food benefit for people sort of regardless, people who don't qualify for federal assistance. I think the big thing that's happening that's most current is going to be in the state budget, where the governor allocated $43 million for legal services in the Office of New Americans. And I think that while I think people will say that we need more, but that is an investment that shows that they recognize the scope of the need there. There was $1 billion for social services and housing and healthcare for newly arrived New Yorkers. That is the intention is for that to be split, city, state, and federal. So the state is committing to contributing about 30% of those costs. Now they capped that at $1 billion, and the New York City comptroller, Brad Lander, he testified that New York is on track to spend more like $4 billion over the course of the next 2 years for the social services required for these new New Yorkers. So I think, just recognizing that even though there is this recognition, even though, elected officials are starting to dedicate the resources necessary, that there's still so much need. Now, for sort of the food assistance world that we occupy, there is the state program is HIPNAP, is Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program, which I try to say that 4 times fast, and Nourish New York, which both in this budget, there was a cut in the executive funding from previous years. So again, that's money for food that we can distribute. That is regardless of immigration status. That's regardless of, it's for people who don't qualify for federal benefits. All New Yorkers have access to that food if they show up at a food pantry. So there are some opportunities in the state budget. I'm gonna hand that over to Isabella to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, from the advocacy perspective, there are ways for us to engage with our local politicians, your state senator, your state assembly person, as these deliberations are happening, right? Because the state budget is still not set in stone right now. There's a lot of deliberating. And you can access those advocacy opportunities on our website, on our advocacy page. You could also directly email me, and I could clue you in to, different, whether it's signing a petition or participating in a call-in dates or, other types of phone banking, etc. And I'll be very happy to share my information at the end of this call for y'all, for those who are interested in participating.
Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of folks on this call will look forward to that info. So I guess my next question is for CCC. We've just heard these upper level state, federal budget decisions that then affect the work that you all do on the ground. So aside from the advocacy piece that the food bank spoke about, what are ways that people can really most effectively help you and the work that you're doing on the ground, from the community for the community?
I could give you a simple answer, and it's the answer I'm pretty sure everyone hears. We need more money. The price on food is going up every day. And it's just amazing, like butter, milk, eggs, all of the general basic stuff that we need, and it's so expensive. And then if you look at the numbers, how we're serving like 300 people a week, I mean, it's kind of wild. It hits your budget and you're like, whoa, what are we gonna do?
It's staggering, because I'm now outreaching to anybody that can give us something to drink so we could save money on water. I'm reaching out to anybody that can give us some type of a snack so our clients just can have a little something sweet, so we could take that money and maybe move it around. And Thomas is the king of that, so hopefully get it into my closet, because I'm late on my Bombas sock delivery, though I'm guaranteed 30,000 pair. Federal Express lost 25 boxes. So now I'm not going to, the socks I was promised for January, I'm not going to see until probably April. So whatever I can outreach and find, hopefully he can maneuver that towards me for whatever's needed inside.
Not only that, I think we need more space. We definitely need more space. Because when we get the deliveries in, we need somewhere to put the space. So we need a bigger space. Because every week we're getting food from, we have City Harvest, Food Bank, you know, we get food from Strokos, we get food from the school, but we just need space to put all the stuff that we get.
I wonder if you guys could speak to the need for volunteers. I think Vanessa, or it was you who was telling me a story about a Broadway set designer who came in, and how people with the most unexpected skills can be helpful in this work.
Well, that came from our lovely cheerleader, Reverend Gina Gore, who is the chaplain of the school. And she has been an amazing help trying to maneuver the parents, where they used to bring a canned good and then they were allowed to dress down for the day. Now she made it into dollar days. And those little dollars that she collects for us can go for socks, can go for brand new underwear, because there's nothing more important than giving somebody a brand new undergarment. And what she also does is helps us collect that bit of money, so we could put it towards, if I ordered sneakers, it pays for the shipping. But what's the biggest thing that she's done, she started in February, every Monday offered up to the parents to please come here and walk around and see what's going on. And this is where your dollar is going. And the first day we were supposed to have 5 people, but we only had 1. But it just so happened that this particular one is the executive director for MJ the Musical, who is kind enough and is putting out for us to get underwears and socks. They can't quite do money because Broadway is really committed to Broadway and the AIDS Foundation, and we completely understand that. But you just never know who's here on the grounds, who walks through the door. So we're really excited that she's such a massive cheerleader for us and is really introducing us to some very interesting people, to say the least.
I would imagine sort of your experience with the volunteers that come through the door and their unexpected gifts, that Episcopal Charities has seen that across the programs that they work with, and the food bank. I think now it'd be great to open the floor to questions if folks have questions about the diverse work represented on this panel.
I'd like to ask a question. Just, we've talked a lot about what's happening at the city and state level in terms of legislation, but I'd be interested in what you see the landscape is, especially with the new Congress. We know that budget bills are constantly where some of these important programs go to die. So I'd be interested in hearing what's happening on that landscape.
Yes, that was an oversight on my part, not talking about the federal, the Farm Bill is being renegotiated this year, reauthorized this year, which, for those who don't know, the Farm Bill oversees not only the food assistance programs, TFAP being the large one, which is the emergency food the federal emergency food program, but also also SNAP is the sort of structure of SNAP is set up in the Farm Bill. So the last Farm Bill authorization was in 2018, and it's generally every 5 years. So this year we will be, or they will be renegotiating that. Those hearings have actually already begun in the Senate Agricultural Committee. And the new Congress is a different landscape, I think, than the one we had in 2018. So I think that while those of us in this world would really like to see some like bold, aggressive changes to SNAP that maybe making permanent some of the waivers and exceptions that were allowed during the pandemic and the public health emergency, I think that we're going to be playing defense much more than we would like to even sort of preserve what we have. So that's not to be, wet blanket on but just to be honest about what I see as the outlook in Congress. I think that there will be, again, a lot of advocacy opportunities, especially for us in New York. Listen, we have the Senate Majority Leader, and we have Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Minority Leader in the House. Both are our local. They both live very near each other, right in Brooklyn, honestly, as our reps. So I think in New York, we will hopefully have some real opportunities to engage with people in leadership. And then right next door in New Jersey, Cory Booker is very active on the Agricultural Committee and has already been very vocal in those hearings. So I think there will be a lot of opportunity for especially those of us in New York to hopefully exert some influence on the Farm Bill negotiations. And those will both, I think, will be important things for us to be monitoring.
Great. And I think, Mr. Tyson, you had your hand up.
I think we're having a technical issue, but we know, Lydell, are you able to ask the question? I should say folks should also feel welcome to type a question in the chat if they're having any issue with the muting or unmuting. 3 years in, we still haven't completely mastered Zoom.
Can I add one more thing from a national perspective? So like the Farm Bill is going to be massive and significant, but it's also that our SNAP benefits, because the state of emergency, I can't remember the technical language for it, is ending. SNAP benefits are about to go down in 90 days. And it just kind of goes to one of the things that we've talked about with our grantees through the last 6-9 months is what we call the COVID cliff. And it's just what Nicole was talking about a little bit earlier, where the need is continuing to rise, but all of this funding has fallen off, and yet the need is still up here. So there was an expectation that during the pandemic, okay, money was there, and the assumption was that it would go back down. But instead, what we've done is we've created a new floor of need, not a new ceiling of need, right? So what's happened is we've had all this need and we've had all this funding. So programs were kind of awash in some cash for a while. And then it is gone. We're seeing that with funders right now all over the area. But that need is still hovering up there. And so it puts places like the Cathedral in a really precarious position, because they're still having all these people show up in need. Their funding has gone down, and the cost of everything has shot up. And so when you hear Thomas say money, 100%.
Yes, thank you for bringing up the emergency allotments ending. It will be next month, really, that people, some of whom for 3 years have been receiving the maximum SNAP allotments, are now going to see those monthly amounts drop to, in some cases, by $200. It's just, I think that separate from the conversation about the influx of the immigrants, because they don't necessarily qualify for SNAP, but we're going to see a lot of people who maybe weren't utilizing food pantries now realizing that their SNAP benefits just don't cover groceries anymore. And so I think that definitely that is going to, just to sort of totally agree, that is a new challenge that the network is going to be facing.
Well, we hate to keep sounding like a broken record in here when we say money, 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 money. We don't need and mean to sound greedy. It's just a fact. We are bleeding and we have donor exhaustion. And even the people that have been so kind and generous for the past 4 or 5 years have really pulled away because they simply don't have it either. So that's why we were grateful when Reverend Gina pivoted from the canned goods, because we are getting food now like crazy. And she was able just to pivot that little bit with us. And it helped so much because she can give me as many cans of beans as she wants. But at that point, I needed t-shirts. She can give me beans, but I have not one pair of men's jeans to open my shop with tomorrow. So if people are willing to pivot with us and just hear us out where we're asking for funds, it makes such a huge difference. We can get what is needed, not what everybody thinks we need, if that makes sense, without sounding ungrateful. And I don't mean it to sound like that at all.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we have a very interesting question from John Tebow, who writes that advocacy and letter writing campaigns are great when they work. What do we do when they don't work? Can the panel recommend any less polite political actions? And I'll leave you to define what less polite actually means.
I guess that's a question for us, sort of. But I think I'm just especially for programs like this, I'm just a big believer in letting our elected officials know that we are paying attention. The budget is a very opaque process. It's intentionally confusing and very difficult to sort of follow what's going on. It's difficult to search through the multiple PDF documents to find line items for like where these things are happening. And that's very intentional, right? And so I think that, letter writing and phone calls and these things are, one doesn't do much, but many can be impactful. But as much as we can let our leaders know that we are paying attention, right? So whether that's tweeting at them, op-eds, shouting them out on social media, electeds hate that. I think the more public and vocal people can be, that like, we see that I find elected officials really like to celebrate things that maybe aren't, weren't as great as we think. We don't think they're as great as they think they are, right? So really being as informed as possible and as vocal as possible, and letting them know that like this isn't falling under the radar. We know that you cut HIPNAP, right? Like this year in the budget. Like we know that you're promising $1 billion, but that the costs are really more like $4 billion, right? Like that the more we can do that and call them out on that, I think that is the most effective way. I think you always want to, I think it's a personal sort of style, but I think you always want to maintain a relationship with folks, with decision makers. So I do try to err on the side of like, thanking them for the good stuff, but then calling them out on the bad stuff. But that is, again, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do that. That's up to individuals. But for me, it's about being informed, making sure that we are mobilizing, with things like this, but then also the communities that we serve, just as many voices as we can have joining in, saying like we're saying here, the need is not going away. The lines are still as long, right? Like we need help, we need support, and that comes from the government, or it has to come from the government. to
Mhm.
meet the scope of what's necessary.
Well,
Great.
so, oh,
I was gonna
sorry.
say, I think Joan had her hand up. Joan Griffithley from Columbia had her hand up for a question.
Yeah, I did. And Nicole kind of like just, address what I was going to mention. At Columbia Community Service, we solicit our employees, retirees, we even target, I hate to say target, but we also approach through communications, employees and retirees at Barnard College and Teachers College for donations. And then we take those donations and we create grants. And right now CCC is one of our funding grantees. We do fund them. We appreciate and we understand what is happening within our communities in terms of this increased need that we are also trying to address in our own way. But we have also seen a really unusual response to our solicitations. Our employees and our retirees are not giving like they used to. So we understand this is affecting everyone. We get it. This is just something that is affecting everyone. My question was, and my sense and my thinking was, this may be a time, and you may be doing it, and I just don't know that you're doing it, but this may be a time to kind of like work, like Nicole said, a collective effort. Remember the good old days when if you needed some sugar, you go knock on your neighbor's door and ask for a cup of sugar, and they would give you a cup of sugar if they had it. I'm wondering if at times, if CCC needs more rice, if they would seek out to find out if the Episcopal Charities have rice. Does the Food Bank, and I know the Food Bank is distributing food to various locations as well, but I'm wondering if there's any really closer, intimate collaboration where if there's a need lacking on one end, is there possibly something that another group can provide any given organization so you don't really feel it as much? Does that make sense? What I'm saying, are you really collaborated in such a way where you can give full support, even to the point where you can come collectively? And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm wondering if our charities, all organizations that are doing food can collectively come together, and please don't let anyone know that I said this, maybe appeal to the higher areas at Columbia for support and for help, which is something I'm going to recommend. If we can get a collective, because the voice now has to be stronger and firmer, and because the need has gone up to such a point that you really can't work on your own. So as I'm talking and answering this question or just sharing my thoughts, I'm actually, going to recommend that maybe our collective organizations that work on food insecurity come as a group and write something on behalf as a group to our higher leadership at Columbia. So that was my recommendation. Maybe you have to have a stronger, closer working effort at this point, because the need is out of control. It's just way. Okay, that's it. That was my thought.
Joan, I just want to say you're always such an inspiration, and you've been an incredible friend and support. And that's amazingly perceptive. And I was thinking, Patrick, you probably could really address that. It's a very complicated question.
I think I would let Thomas go first, and then I'm happy to follow up if that's okay.
Oh, no. Well, thanks, Pat. So we were just sitting here, we're discussing like different scenarios on how we try. Vanessa, how would you say it?
Well, the outreach that I'm doing is doing what Joan is suggesting. We get food from Strokos, we get food from the school here. So right there, that's almost 300 extra meals I get a day, which is more than half is gone by the next day. My interaction with Coca-Cola, we send Thomas and Robert up to Elmsford. We get over 4 skids of different types of drinks. Interaction with Bombas, we're the first ones that got their underwears and t-shirt trial. So we're out there and we're moving, and Coalition for the Homeless and Cape.
Coalition. So it's just a question, like you said, Joan, and I agree. It just has to be, I think it has to be a better system where other programs and all of us are together. Like Joan brought up the scenario of asking for a cup of sugar. We should be able to go to BCI and say, hey, what do you have for us? Or what do you need? But we need to figure that out with more groups, not just one or two different groups. We're going to need, like, to get out of this, we're going to need a lot of help because everyone's suffering. So the only way to get through it is we're going to have to work together and to see how we're going to get out of this. So
And
that's
they
how we
can
see it,
only
yeah.
give so much, but our motto in here is no donation is too small. You got it.
Absolutely.
You got it, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So we did run into some really great partnerships in the beginning when we opened the food pantry, and people were just coming like crazy. We literally had no food. I called my connection over at Coalition for the Homeless. What did he do? He had every day for a week, he gave us 200 stews to make sure we had food for people. The other day, he didn't get vegetables for his delivery to make the stew. So what do I have here? 10 bags of carrots to give him. We are working, everybody we work with is a partner, and we are reaching out to everybody to get this done in here. I can't speak for anybody out there, but in here, we reach out to everybody, and we have a real great core group that have been really helping us since the beginning.
I and exactly what you're talking about, Vanessa, is what I'm talking about, but at a different level, a broader level. During COVID, we created a food relief campaign. And I think one of the reasons why our employees were so great, that the response to that food relief campaign was incredible. Maybe we need to do another one right now. But I think people paid attention because they had to stay still. Like, God has to speak. God, you can hear God. You can hear the Spirit of God as He speaks to you, but you need to kind of like stay still for a bit and really tune in. And I think that's how we were able to get attention from our employees and even people that we've never donated to our campaign before, because COVID made us stay still for a bit and pay attention. But given that thought, I think we probably need another food campaign, again, food relief campaign, specifically for food. And so we can increase, we can get some donations and just get that support directly for CCC. And it's not just for CCC, but we need that support precisely for food, because this is just something it's just a bigger level now. It's a whole new level, like Patrick was saying, this is a whole new ceiling. And so the response and the approach and the strategy has to change. We can't do it the same way that we've been doing it.
So Joan, your reflections and Thomas's reflections, I'm hearing just the ways that organizations are truly making this up as they go along while trying to serve need at some of the highest levels that many folks who have been doing this a long time have ever seen in this work. And while we think about sort of the need for new solutions, new energy, Joan, I love what you said about being sort of forced to sit still for a minute and listen to God. And I wonder, Patrick and Tobi, if you could speak about the unique role that faith communities have to play in this as non-governmental organizations, as organizations that can sometimes be a bit more nimble than state and local government.
Yeah, one of the things that is great about being at Episcopal Charities is I sit in a lot of church basements. I sit in a lot of spaces that are behind the altar or under the altar. And those spaces become equally as sacred to the people that are serving as the sacred spaces of an altar or of the church nave. One of the things that we talk about in all of our programs, in order to come, because we believe in open invitation, you don't have to sit in a service, you don't have to pray, whatever, you just come as you are. But there is something powerful about a weekly distribution in rural Ulster County where there's a priest there that is saying, hey, we just love you. Communities are really built around food, right? We sit at tables, right? In the Episcopal tradition, the Eucharistic table is a table that we gather around. It's around food. And so I believe that people of faith have a really interesting place in this conversation, because that's where their conviction comes from. Others have different convictions, equally as powerful, but this is just theirs. The other thing is, most often they start because someone was knocking on the church door asking for something to eat. And a group of people in the church said, it's not okay that our neighbors don't have food to eat. And so they gather and they try to figure out how to do it. And then Episcopal Charities comes in to help train them on how to do it well, how to do it healthy, in a healthy manner, how to do it in a sustainable manner, those kinds of things. So I think faith has a really significant part in this for so many people who are deeply committed to making sure everybody has something to eat, that everyone has access. So, do you have another thought about that?
Yeah, I think the beautiful nature of most churches and parishes and church communities is that they're communities. So within the parish, there are different people with different gifts. You know, we often talk about the talents. Everybody has their different talents that they bring into the parish house, and then those germinate within these different programs to help. Like, for example, I visited a program in Mount Vernon who one of the members of the vestry works for Ford Foundation, so she does grant writing for them. So it's different things like that that kind of help bring these communities together. And not only that, but often there's these different relationships, these different networks within the parish that build these these coalitions that that Joan was speaking about. So I think that's just kind of the beauty of these faith communities. I think about like Mount Kisco Interfaith, which is a community of faith organizations that came together, was like, hey, we have to feed our community. So it's not just, Episcopal churches, too. I think a synagogue and a mosque, and then a Lutheran church, if I recall correctly, that are part of this interfaith pantry. And it's one of the biggest pantries in southern mid-Westchester County right now. So I think that's kind of the beauty of the nature of, again, faith is communal inherently. So that creates this community that allows us to do the work and create these coalitions that are necessary for that.
Variety of gifts, but the same spirit that activates them in each of us. I love hearing how all of you are sort of speaking about the need for individuals offering their gifts and offering of themselves, but individuals offering to create, communal action. We have time, I think, for one more question, and that's from Judith.
Okay, I was just wondering, in terms of your clients, the people that come to you, what the mix. I mean, I hear it sounds like there's homeless people and there's people that it sounds like are working and maybe have a place, but just don't have enough. I don't know whether you could give a little bit more of a picture of the demographics of your clientele that you work with.
Maybe CCC wants to start with that. I'm sure all of our panelists have thoughts. Maybe CCC wants to start.
Apologies, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Well, the question is, it seems like I'm trying to understand the clientele that you serve. I mean, some of them, it sounds like, are homeless that need very basic things that a homeless person would need. But it sounds like there's also people that may have jobs and homes, but they just can't get by.
No, you are absolutely
wondering what percentage of each type, of various classes of people is it that you find that you're serving?
I think at this point now it's almost a close split, a very close split. So we do have homeless people. We have been seeing a lot more 3-tier families. The clothing and the food we give away go to homeless, 3-tier families, and people that are just getting by. A lot of the people that started working now are using us just to get over the hump until that first paycheck kicks in. And which is what Patrick said in the beginning, that's what we were for. Now, there are other people, 2 homes, working families with a couple of kids that are using this just as a regular ShopRite because they can't afford the regular store. But we definitely, I would say, since the biggest uptick, I think, started in July 2022, and that's when we really saw the flux of migrants coming in as well, which adds to a family base because they're never without children and they're never without under 3 children per family. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, if I can add just real quick, especially what we're seeing up in the Hudson Valley as well, along with the city, is it's a different group pre-pandemic and now. Many more people are coming in who are housing secure, so they have an apartment, a home, they have a job. Most likely they have multiple jobs that just aren't paying enough. When we saw the increase in like the cost of living, when we saw inflation hit, right? That minimum wage paycheck isn't enough to get the kid to school and to have a lunch. And so what we often think about in food insecure are those that are housing insecure, or those people who maybe have mental issues, or any of those kinds of things. But it's just simply not the case right now. It is everyone. The number of people walking in line who have never stood in a line can be staggering at times. And so the people at the cathedral, who are amazing and some of the most hospitable people, to say, welcome, it's okay. No, I know you don't want to be here. I know it's hard. I know you don't know what's going on. It's okay. We got you. You're a part of us. And so I think it's understanding that it's you will not be able to pick someone out of a line and say that one and those two are housing insecure by what they look like or what they're wearing. You just can't anymore.
Yeah, I just want to add a little anecdote just to kind of add to that story. So, for example, one of the programs that we support is Crossroads Community Services, which is supported by St. Bartholomew's Church in Midtown. And they have a breakfast program. They're one of the few programs to have a breakfast program. And they started seeing a lot of people who are working who literally could not afford to buy breakfast in the city. So they were like, let me just save money by going to Crossroads. We're seeing I had my little hat from the Guild of St. Margaret's, which is in Middletown Upper, which is Orange County, and they talk about over there seeing more families. Usually it was single men. They're right by a train bus kind of center. So it'd be mostly single working men that would be at the pantry pre-pandemic, but now they're seeing more families. Used to be traditionally a lot of elderly people. Now it's elderly people also bringing their families with them to these pantries, to these food, to kind of go to that tier situation. So before it was just me just getting for myself, and then I'll scrap some money to get for the kids. But now I have to bring the kids along to the pantry. So these are kind of the things that we're seeing throughout the diocese.
This is breaking my heart. It really is. It's really breaking my heart. The only thing I wanted to recommend to the organizations is that to keep really good number keep account of what you're doing and really track your data, because we find that even as CCS is a funding organization, our employees, especially faculty, are caught up in those numbers. They want to know how many meals are going out. They want to know how many. They seem to get a better understanding of what's happening. If numbers are provided, the data is provided. We're working on trying to get our employees to do more volunteering. So that's an ongoing challenge for us as well. I just wanted to get that out there because I know you spoke about volunteering. But even that, in asking for volunteers, they need to know what the need is, exactly what's the need, because a lot of people are not, some people are disconnected from this issue. They don't understand what it is to go without a meal. So it's kind of like having to bring the issue closer and closer to people who donate and people who can possibly give support. So again, be sure to count those numbers and keep the data as you ask for support. I just wanted to add.
Well, I know Food Bank, CCC, Episcopal Charities, such a breadth and diversity of the work that you do. And I hope that all of the folks who have attended this panel today will check out y'all's websites and see some of the numbers, right, that Joan was just talking about that you have captured there, to just look at the incredible breadth of what you all offer. And so that makes it even more of a gift that you took some time out of your schedules today to be with us and to be with this panel. And just listening to this today, I've been thinking about how, you know, the numbers, like 76% increase, the numbers are shocking. And then behind all of those numbers are so many just individual stories. To imagine to any one of us what would have to happen in our lives for one of us to be on the line who has not been there before. So any way that you can share that with the members of your community and the people that you love, I think will help to spread the good work that you all are doing. So I think with that, we're reaching the hour mark. So I just want to thank our panelists, Thomas, Vanessa, Robert from CCC, Nicole and Isabella from the Food Bank for New York City, Patrick and Toby from Episcopal Charities. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.